On today?
Well, I
What's the
thank you,
topic?
Deborah. Today we're doing what they call a technical run. Okay. We're trying to see how easy or hard it is to get people to get into the Wirecast system and do a mock show, seeing how it goes, and then seeing if we run into any technical problems with the software, with the audio, and then let the rest of the people watch and see how it's run. And while that's running, to see whether or not we get interruptions like Don talking over and doing that where he forgot to mute himself before he got on a personal phone call, or Bill Russell, chatting with someone who's in the room and his mute was off. So people need to understand they got to mute themselves, because whatever you guys say is recorded and becomes part of the after party show, which is okay if you don't mind. But if you're worried about doing something private, hit that mute button, do whatever. But we want natural reactions too while we do the show. So also part of this is we're going to grab our panelists out of the audience, out of the room. Similar like, how many people have seen Price is Right?
All of us.
Y'all seen Price is Right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Price is Right. They grab people out of the audience. So you guys are the audience. And so the goal is now to find out, we pull people out of the audience, put them into Wirecast, disconnect them from Zoom. They got to disconnect from Zoom, join Wirecast, and then they become part of the show. And everybody in Zoom gets to see the show, but not interfere with the show. That their voice isn't getting recorded. Their voice isn't getting thrown into the show. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if we were going to do a show today and we were going to talk about some amazing stuff, what subjects, let everyone throw some stuff out. What subjects are you guys interested in chatting about today? Ted?
Ted, why me? Oh, I don't know. Can Congress do anything at all? Is the right-wing section of the Republican House more or less disintegrating itself as we speak? How about that?
Okay, interesting. Deborah, do you have any subject ideas? We'll come back to you. How about Michelle Walter?
Hello, can you hear me?
Got any ideas, Michelle?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Mine would be that with regards to the school system and some of these horrible kids that completely are disruptive, that are horrible to teachers, that are absolutely will completely interrupt a whole class, but there's nothing that's done to them. And there's nothing that the teachers can do. There's a complete lack of respect from the kids to the teachers. And I just feel like with regards to our education, I mean, the kids that are there that actually want to learn something, and unfortunately, they just don't have that opportunity because sometimes you just have one or two bad apples that just absolutely, completely ruin it for the rest of the children.
Wow.
And I just feel like there's something that needs to be taken into account, though, with regards to if there is going to be a kid that's, or a multiple of kids, get them out. I don't care where you put them. Just, I mean, make them go.
Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure how that works with politics, but we'll play with some ideas there.
Yes.
Bill Russell, any thoughts on your end of something that we might want to talk about today?
Well, I think there's a lot out there, a lot going on in the world right now. We've got everything going from Ukraine to our border crisis, the crisis in education, which was just mentioned. There's a lot going on there in terms of, public policy and it actually does. I would argue that education side is something that has a lot to do with politics. And there's a lot of political impacts both on education and then the educational impact back on politics. So a lot going on, a lot can be discussed.
Okay.
We'll see where it
Good
all
ideas. Education and border crisis. I see.
Nat.
Larry Haber.
Yes, sir.
Any thoughts from you of what you would want to talk about today?
Probably the election.
What aspect of the election?
Well, my question is, does anybody really care about the election at this point?
Oh my God.
Okay.
He's speaking a mouthful. That's the truth.
Okay, Rosalind, what are your thoughts that you would like to talk about today?
Well, I'm kind of fascinated working in the private charter education and comparing that to public education and some of the things that I've seen. I've had about 3 months working there, and kids are getting free education, and it's amazing in comparing that to what happens in the public schools and what's going on over there.
Okay, so you want to talk about education as well. Drake Pearson, I see you're in the group. Are you got video yet?
Yeah, give me just a second.
1001.
Exactly.
Oh, there we go. It's working.
That's something. There
So
he
What would
is.
you like to talk about, Drake?
I don't know. I'm just here.
You're just here. Well, we've had 3 people mention education. I'm talking about our education system.
Oh, I didn't know
started
that.
something, didn't I?
So
Yeah.
you might know a few things about it. I could be wrong, but
I didn't know we were talking
education
about
as a topic?
education. I'd be
Huh?
happy to talk about education.
Okay.
How about
Yeah.
third party candidates and the abuse that we've seen in Florida and the third party with Kennedy in the national election? And is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Is that like, does a third party candidate have a chance or not? Is that what you're
Well,
referring
I
to?
mean, in Florida, we had multiple counties have political operatives find some, excuse me, Joe Blow to be on the ballot that really aren't wanting, but they're a spoiler. And the same thing
yeah.
is really said about Kennedy on the national level. And is he going to be a spoiler for the Democrats or the Republicans? And, should
So
there be some?
using third party people to split the vote and mess things up.
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Interesting.
That's
That's an interesting
intelligent.
topic.
Yeah.
Okay. And Leo, what do you think? What would you like to talk
I'm
about?
interested in the BRICS right now. I've been doing a lot of research on what's going on around the world right now and currency changing and how it's affecting the economy.
Okay, you talking about Brexit?
BRICS, the new currency.
New currency. Okay.
Just crypto? A crypto thing?
No,
Not just
Digital.
crypto,
No,
like
it's the digital currency.
well,
not
BRICS
just the
isn't so
digital,
much-
everything's changing from the federal government and how that's going to affect things going forward in the, our future.
Oh, I didn't know.
BRICS
BRICS countries are like
Okay.
South America, or not South America, South
And,
Africa and India and like China, Russia. Those are the BRICS countries.
Brazil, yeah.
And
Oh, I
Patrick,
see. Oh, that's right.
what have you thought?
Brazil,
about
Russia, India.
Oh, yeah.
China.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, I
China?
was thinking about
Sorry
that
about that.
third party thing as well.
Okay, you like the third party one. Okay.
Yeah, about, if it's going to be, one of the, primary parties, what is the third party going to do for us?
So is third party being weaponized? Is that what we're thinking?
Yes.
They're being used as a
I
weapon
think so,
against the
yeah.
other parties?
Yes.
Yeah, I
It's
agree on
worked
that.
before.
too.
Yes.
Was it
Do
Leo?
they even have a
Or-
chance to win? And should we just abolish them? I actually like the third party thing, but I like it because I think that if everyone had a voting system where you had first and second and third option, the secondary party, the third party might actually win because people want them, but they don't vote for them just in case the other candidate. And I think that would be interesting to allow for a multiple tiered system. Samara, I see you're there, but you have no video. Do you have any thoughts on what you want to talk about today?
I'm here. I wanted to talk about how today's society is leaving an imprint to our youth.
Wasn't that? What's he saying?
Today's society, the things that are happening today, how education basically, how is that impacting the youth that's coming up from like 5 years to 10 years from now?
Okay. All right.
Okay. And Shireen.
I guess I would say, why is TikTok such a factor when there's so many other things that obviously you guys are talking about that our government should be caring about other than TikTok?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
TikTok.
Good point.
Okay.
It's one of the
Another
many
one,
Or you
though,
can hit
I
the
mean-
thing on, but you can't do it on the Zoom thing, right? It only goes on the.
Okay. So let me put Bob on here. So what we're looking at, guys, is we have quite a people want to talk about education. A couple people want to talk about the third party candidates and whether or not they're a weapon or whether or not they even have a chance to win. And then we had some outlier subjects about TikTok and immigration and a couple other things. So Bob, what would you like?
Well, the only problem with third party is going to be hard without mentioning an actual politician. Of course, the one thing to talk about, like Jeff Barrett always talked about the fact that he voted for the Libertarian candidate and whether that was a waste of a vote. Obviously, the Kennedy thing is interesting. I don't know whether my vote for Ross Perot was a stupid vote, type thing, or John
Yeah, it was
Anderson.
a stupid vote.
Some of y'all are old enough to remember John Anderson.
Yeah.
I love
remember
those
John
guys.
Anderson. Yeah.
They were
I
incredible.
voted for John Anderson.
So did
Yes,
I.
yes.
So did I.
Yo. Oh God, did these people ever make sense? They have to not be a politician, I guess, to make sense. And these guys
Yeah.
are great. Who couldn't vote for Ross Perot? Oh my God. So I don't know. The education one sounds like we could probably find four, that would kind of be maybe a little different ideologically, that we could have probably a conversation there. I don't know where the one would go with the third candidate.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to send this message in chat, and only those 4 people need to jump in, but they have to copy it first. Okay, they have to copy this message I'm putting in chat. Then they have to exit out of Zoom and then open up that window inside of Google Chrome and join the Wirecast session. Okay. Anyone have a problem with doing it? Come back on Zoom and tell us, and then we'll pick someone else. Okay.
Well, I'm not
There
going to
it
be
is.
on that. I'm just on Zoom.
I understand, Larry. That's why you're not going to be on the show. It's only the 4 people that we said are going to talk.
Oh,
on the show.
okay. You don't need the rest of us for any reason for that. Okay.
Right. The rest of you guys are
Gotcha.
staying on Zoom. Yes.
Now, the rest of the ones staying on Zoom, what we're going to try to figure out is how can this run like Mystery Theater, where y'all will be able to make quick comments as y'all are listening to the show and see what that conversation ends up getting like.
Comments in chat or on video, on audio?
Audio. We're going to see if we can do it on audio. Now, obviously, it's going to take some technological skills, because what is on Zoom is when you speak, it flips to you. So you're going to have to speak and get out. I mean, this will be definitely the briefer comments being
Rosalind, your video
not to
coming in.
mention the fact that you'd be able to talk during the commercials also. So I'm thinking that the repartee within the Zoom might end up being, better than the show. Who knows?
All right, you guys, I muted them.
Yeah.
So can you guys hear me?
I can
Yeah, I
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Yes.
Okay, so I just muted the
Yes.
You guys can't hear them
Yeah,
anymore,
can't.
right?
No.
Okay, so I muted
No, I
the
can hear
show.
you.
All right, so that's how I mute the show, go back and forth to the show. We can hear the show when they started. And then if you guys want to talk about certain things, we can mention anybody's names, we can go back and forth to the show. So if you want to listen to the show, we can go that way, or we can talk about issues that you have that's burning. This is the only time you can talk about, you can bring up people's names, you can talk about Biden, talk about Trump.
You know what's funny is that no one's talking about how they're not putting the election on TV. It seems like the winner is already decided.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that.
Well, out of the 2 parties.
Yeah, I believe
They're
in
not
election.
really promoting it that much. They're not telling us anything. I don't see any great candidates other than the ones that we have.
Well,
That's a big issue,
Yeah.
Leo. You're right, because that's one reason a lot of people in the Democrats are unhappy with Biden. Biden should have said, "I'm running for 1 term only," and give the Democrats 4 years to come up with somebody else. Well, the Democrats didn't have anybody else really that could step into that role, and that's a big issue. There should have been
That's what I'm
more
saying, bro.
qualified candidates.
Yeah, they should be 2 elections ahead.
Welcome to the Third
I
Side
think so, too.
Convo with your host, Bob
is this-
Phipps.
Oh,
Your panelists
Is
today
that the
are
show?
Rosalind Kahn, Michelle Walters,
Is he going to use that
Drake
voice?
Pearson,
yeah.
and Bill Russell.
Okay.
And now,
They got that
your
on the front.
host, Bob Phipps.
This is bad.
I
Look
can't
at
tell
him.
you how great it is to see everybody today.
Oh, man.
We're going to be talking about a subject, and we're going to be having a
guys can
political
still-
discussion. And believe it or not, we've figured out a way to do that. On the Third Side Convo, we have decided that we don't want to hear the names of any of those idiot politicians. We don't want to talk about what they did or what they said. That's a little thing we call Uber discourse, which means we just don't want to talk about them. They are causing most of the problems. So we're able to get some people on here that kind of agree with us, and they're willing to talk about things without any kind of discussion as to those politicians that unfortunately we have to vote for. So today we're going to talk a little bit about education. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of just talk about the issues that are going on with education. And there certainly are many of them. We are not going to be able to even come close to breaking the whole thing down. But everybody said they wanted to talk about education. So there's some interesting things about that. You know, we've got charter schools we could talk about. We've just got the kind of the craziness that's actually happening in schools these days. I know one local high school here that, you know, for a year that the teachers lost control of the halls, let's say.
Yes.
But then we've got a lot of good stuff going on. So that's what we're going to do. So after our first break, we're going to get into our discussion, and we're going to start out and see what we can do and talk about education as we're just regular people. We're going to do it. We're going to talk about it.
All right, I muted the commercials, or you guys go back and talk about.
Hey, you know what's funny? If we talked about education in a whole, the kids are not involved in voting, knowing what's going on. They're oblivious like school. They're stuck in the same transit.
Yeah, yeah. I good point, man. I think because, you know, one thing about the schools, you know, there was some stuff we got away from that was actually pretty good, like how they taught you how to. We had a thing called Bachelor of Living, right? It taught you how to sew, how to write your checkbook, how you do all these different things, and the history, how to vote, and everything like that. So he was in a class for like 9 weeks in that class, and it taught you how to do all these things. And we've gotten away from that, showing people how to. That's why I got in. That's why I got in voting and election.
It's home economics.
Yeah, home economics.
Guys did home economics. Did that stuff. Yeah. Balance a checkbook. Balance a checkbook. You know.
And most kids can't even write a check now.
There you go.
They don't even know how to write in cursive. To be able to sign a check.
Okay, but this is the thing. I think that there's so much, they have so much attention pulling them away from what's in front of them. Screens, TikTok, their phone. And so that's the key. When we went to school, Don, we didn't have a phone in our pocket. No. We had to pay attention to the teacher. That was the only source of information coming, or the book. Right. Now these guys can go get so much information so fast from anywhere. Many students feel it's devalued. The education is devalued. They can know what they want to know instantaneously off their phone.
Yeah,
as far as getting the answer.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was listening.
Rosalind, I know you're kind of in higher education, but what do you see on the elementary and high school levels that we've got to do?
Well, you know, there's some crazy stuff going on. It all comes back to those parents who allow their kids to spend endless amount of hours on those computer games and those video games, is shortening the attention span that we have in the kids in the classroom. I was in a high school where they were talking about a new policy happening up in the city of Santa Clarita here in California, where they were not allowing kids to have their phones at all, completely taking them away. And it comes down to, you know, what do parents do in the household to garner in their kids and let them know what's right and wrong, what they can and can't do. I was in a meeting when one day a lady was talking about that they bring the parents in for the meetings that they have, and the teachers say, you know, just sign the paper. I don't need to be here. This is just pointless.
Hey, Michelle, and you're a mom, right? Do you see, is it okay to take away the cell phones, and should we?
I think that's, I mean, it's very complicated. It would be a nice solution. I just think that trying to implement on something like that would be very difficult. I mean, with regard, these kids are so ingrained in their phone that the hard part about it, if there's a will, there's a way. And these freaking kids, they get away with absolutely everything. So I think the concept behind it is nice, but the implementation, I just don't think that it's going to happen.
Hey, Bill, what have you heard of schools that have shut down cell phones completely? And what have
Yes, I have heard of schools that have shut down cell phones. Generally, they're your private schools, your religious schools, where you see that most often. But the most important school, and I think something that's kind of been left off as people discuss, is the homeschool, where it's very easy to make kids turn off those cell phones and have them focus on what they're doing. And going back to Drake's point, he's very correct in that there are a lot of people who just advocate the raising of the kids to the school system. But again, when we look at, there's a lot of parents who deeply care, who want to be very much in control of the education of their kids, but they're not given the choice of which schools their kids are going to be educated in, whether that be a charter school, a private school, or a homeschool.
Got it. All right.
Much less a public
Well,
school.
let's see. Let's see, Joe. How
Hey,
much more
what I'm
time do we
thinking,
got
they're
here before our
dumbing the
break?
kids
Just
down
this
by
is our
having a
first
phone all
show.
the
I'm trying
time.
to figure these
They're not
things
moving
out.
as much.
Got a few more minutes? Okay, Drake. Let's go back to you, Marty. That's 6 minutes.
I love.
We're
I love
back
what
to
Bill
you,
said.
Drake. Drake,
Yeah.
how do you see about the whole cell phone thing? I mean, why do kids have to have their cell phones in their pockets?
Listen, I love what Bill said because he's exactly right. If you're at home, the parents can definitely influence whether you've got a cell phone or not. They're the ones buying it, right? But here's the bigger piece, right? Actually, education is happening through the cell phones. So when parents are getting their kids these cell phones, they're sending them off to school. They're actually learning through YouTube, through social media, through all of that, more so than they are from their own teachers. That's where the real learning is taking
but wait a
place,
second here.
unfortunately.
Don't get this wrong here. Yes, in my college classroom, I would often have kids go to their computer and excuse me, their cell phone, log into it so they could get online because they couldn't get it on the computer. It is used for information, but kids are kind of squirmy. You'd have to go and look at the kid over the shoulder to see, are they actually in the school program or are they?
I like how he's doing the show, man. Donald, you heard me?
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I like how he's doing the show. He's got a good flow.
Thank
And,
you.
There are no
we're
cell
talking
phones to
about
be
the
used in
same things they're
class,
talking
and
about.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I
I'm
unmute
sorry.
them and let them talk.
Oh, I was actually watching. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, hold on.
was
I'm sorry. I think it was going to the commercial. I tried to time the commercial.
The parents aren't necessarily going to take accountability on any of this. I mean, a lot of them just completely step away from it. And, like you said, sit there and put it on the education system to, to teach them. But overall, there's no accountability. There's no accountability at home. My best friend
Yeah,
is
that's
a
the
third
biggest
grade
thing.
teacher, and the stories that I hear from
Absolutely.
her are just awful.
Parents
Right.
don't
And
Very.
look after their
that
kids.
No
the
home accountability.
parents
They won't do anything.
allow all of this
Everything,
completely
everything.
disconnect with the kids to be so disrespectful and so hurtful and harmful though to the to the administration and to any other type of
Oh, everybody would complain
They're
about the way
there.
kids behave in school, but
And
if
they know
I
there's
brought up
nothing that can
spanking,
happen with them. They know
Well,
there's
there's
everybody-
a great book
everybody would
out
have
that
something
talked
to say
about
with
this.
me
Was a
about
child
spanking.
psychologist, and
How
so he
about the
met-
parents in
he meets these
Michigan who
kids
let
all
their
the time
kids go
and
to school
Greg,
and then they got
he
convicted
finally
and
realized it wasn't
gas-murdered?
doing any good.
Yeah,
He said, "I got to be
that sends
with the damn
shockwaves
parents,"
to people though.
because it's the
People
parents that are
starting
the
to think.
problem.
It is.
Right.
Bill,
Absolutely, it's the parents that are problems.
yeah, Bill, what do we do to those parents?
Well, it's not so much about what we do to them, but I think it's just getting as a country, getting back to focusing on the most important educational system in our country, which begins with the family. The most important teachers for any child are their parents. And when we look at all we're doing on a policy level within the government, whether it be education or other social programs, where we have the government stepping in and trying to take over the role of being the parent, trying to take over the role of and doing the things that the family should traditionally do, it just undermines the family, and then you
Government's
end up
not
with
wanting to be the
families actually
parent.
abdicating
Government has to be the
control
parent
and
sometimes.
education of
Jesus
kids
Christ.
completely, whether it be to the
Right.
cell phones or to the school system.
Well, let me throw something else in there. I was just recently in an education yesterday with a kindergarten class, and they had parents who actually came into the classroom and shared their knowledge and skills. There were people from aerospace. There were people who
I've
were
done that.
working in HR and the movie industries, and they were sharing. And I was so proud that I did this post on my social media talking about how great it was to work at a charter school that valued what parents could do in the educational system to show their kids different jobs that they could have in the community. And the one thing that all of them said was, you got to work hard. You can be anything you want in life if you're willing to work hard and put in the effort. So it's a matter of how do we ingratiate this in other parts of the system.
But that takes place though in the public schools though as well. I mean, both of my kids went to public schools, and they were both. It was a common practice though, especially though. I remember through elementary, middle school, and they both went to two separate middle schools to where that was something they would bring in. I can't even remember what they would call it, but it was something along the lines of.
All right, we're going to jump up.
like
We've got to have our next break, Michelle. We'll start that quote right after the next break.
Yeah, okay, you guys. I'm trying to time the breaks. When they say about the cell phones, I have one thing. If you can go to a Dave Chappelle concert and they take your cell phone
Yeah.
and they put them in a package, and you can't use your cell phone till the show's over with. They can do it in the schools. That's all I'm saying.
You go to corporate meetings, you go to political party fundraisers, they take your phones away.
Yeah, exactly. They put it in a little, you
Right. Put it in the pouch.
You can't open it until they open it until in the class.
Yeah. So I think, the big issue is, when these school shootings happen, though, parents know about it because their kids are calling them on their cell phone.
Right.
And first calls are going on through cell phones to 911. So there's always a safety issue. I think there's a happy medium someplace.
Well, if you had
walk into a classroom and put it in a drawer.
Right. Put it in a drawer, put it in one of the little pouches. The teacher's got the key.
Yeah.
And, they open up they have a little magnet key to open it up. So they need to call somebody. So,
but back to the point about Gibson saying, the government wants to be the parent. That's bullshit. The problem with public education and private education, for that matter, is they are the first line of interaction between society and the personal lives of their students. So when a kid comes in with a black eye, it's up to the teacher to ask, how did you get a black eye? A kid has cracked teeth. How'd you get your cracked teeth? And guess what? That never happened 50 years ago. Kid came with a black eye. Nobody said anything. Same with a battered wife. Neighbor sees a battered wife, can barely walk, bruises all over. Nobody said anything. Well, now we say things, and it's better for it.
right. Are you guys back on the show?
Yeah, I think so.
Parents that
Yeah.
on that school shooter where they finally made the parents accountable.
Yeah.
At what level do you make the parents accountable for their child?
Totally.
If their
All
child is
levels?
going off in a completely different direction, or
yeah,
if the child
100%.
is not
All of it.
complying, or you know what I mean, or is, whatever education, whatever school. If their child is.
Well, does anybody want to
Well,
take
that-
that? What did y'all think when you saw that they were making this kid, these parents responsible for the kid's school shooting? It certainly, because it could filter all the way down to responsible for their education.
I don't know about making a parent responsible for a school shooting. I really just don't know about that. But I do know, as far as making a parent responsible for their child's education, it should 100% be the parent's responsibility, because at the end of the day, the school doesn't have to take responsibility for that. The school,
Well,
at the
no,
end
but
of
how
the
do you
day,
sit there and make them accountable, though? I mean, that's the big thing that was going to be the big question is, there's a lot of parents who sit there and say, okay, completely hands off, put it in the school system's hands. How do you make the parents step in and say,
I think
okay,
what would
well,
be-
you're not doing these things. I mean, in order for us to be, productive in the classroom, it needs to be reinforced at home as well.
Yeah.
And if a parent's not doing that, then how do you sit there and go to them and go, okay, well, if you want to be successful on this, we need your part, your part, but you're not doing your part. So,
well, at the end of the day, the school doesn't really care, because at the end of the day, the school is going to graduate, whoever they're going to graduate, they're going to move kids out, they're going to do whatever. But what would have a parent become very involved is, what if instead every parent was given, here's the amount of money that we're going to spend in taxes on your child to go to this school, that school, whatever. They're just handed the money and they can do whatever they want. They can homeschool, they can go to private school, they can go to
what's gonna happen with that money.
they
Come
want.
on. Great.
No, you can't do that, man.
What's going on?
No.
I was like, what's gonna happen with that money? I mean, honestly, come on.
What's that?
Yes.
What do you think is going to happen?
No, my light bill need to
You
be
know
paid.
what? Nordstrom rack. I don't know.
Okay, but then at the end of the day, that parent's going to have to, they're going to have to realize they're responsible for, hey, my kid is not going to school, because they're either going to have to spend that with the public school, with the private
going
school,
in.
with the charter school,
We all have that
homeschool,
Uncle
whatever
Bobby.
it is. And if their kid's not getting the education, everyone's going to look at that parent like, you had the money, you had the resources, you
So,
had the
okay,
opportunity to do
for
whatever you wanted to do,
purposes,
and you spent it on Nordstrom Rack. That's on the
They hand
parent.
somebody 20 grand and say, you need to sit here and you need to educate your kid. Here's
No,
20 grand.
And
You
that would
really
allow a
honestly
lot of
think
parents
that ain't gonna
actually,
work,
that would
bro.
allow them to stay
No.
home and actually be able to educate their children.
Well, we all know the statistical research that the richest parents in the world have the money to send their kids off to the best schools in the world, and the ones that have the least amount of income are relegated to the ones that have less things. I can go ahead and
That's
tell
why you
you
have
about their
public schools.
pencil packets and things like that. There's a kid I saw in kindergarten who was sitting there, third grade, putting on chapstick all day long, and she said, we're going to have to go ahead and talk to your kid. There was another kid who had a thing around her neck, and I said, are you going to tell your mom that you can't bring that to school today? And yet I've been in classes where there are kids with special needs that literally, that's a babysitting program.
Yeah.
The kids with
Oh.
the babysitting program are, you know, I feel there's something that needs to happen when we talk about bringing kids with special needs and mainstreaming them into the classroom, because there's little learning that goes ahead and happens out there. It's pretty scary.
So
But
where
you
are
have
those
to come
parents,
back to
you know, that
what
the
we really
government wants
see.
to
It's the
become a
ones that have the
parent?
least
Where are those
amount of
parents
money
not
that are
letting the
getting the
government
least amount of
take care of their
services that
kids?
are out there, and the
Exactly.
ones that have
Yeah.
the most
I'm a
amount of money are
special
having the
needs
best
parent.
services and the best
Yeah.
programs and so on and so forth. Or you could go to Texas, and in Texas, the only things that you need to learn are reading, math, and community service, and you don't have to graduate from school, and that could be our school system. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
That,
Piece of
that,
shit.
I'm in agreement with both Drake and Rosalind on this.
Me
And where I
too.
fundamentally disagree with Michelle is that Michelle seems to be arguing from the perspective that it's up to parents to support the school system. It is the exact opposite. It is for the schools to support the parents in the education of their children. There is no one more qualified to make the educational decisions for each child than their parents. It is not for the school system to make those decisions, because when we try this one size fits all approach to school systems, it robs the parents of that choice. And we get the parents involved and give them the choice and give them the vouchers with which to promote the education of their kids, be it homeschooling, staying at home, but providing all those. That's where it needs to come in. And when you talk about the waste of money, going back to Michelle's point, is the true waste of money is what we have in the school systems, where we have, you know, literally sometimes it seems like 15 administrators.
It's
for every
fundamental.
10
Just pay the
teachers,
teachers, man.
and the money is just fundamentally wasted on a massive scale. And the kids, and we end up with the educational system just as Drake described it, where the kids aren't learning. They're being left to their own devices, and they're learning more from their cell phones than they're learning in the classroom. And we need to push it back out to the families and to the parents.
Well, we do have to sit there and push it back out to the families now, but this is one of the things I have to admit that I kind of fundamentally, you know, I differ with you though, Bill, on, is you're basically stating though that the school system needs to be in support of, you know what I mean, the parents. I think this it's vice versa. I mean, I really honestly do. I think that with regards to the school system and teachers, just, I mean, the overwhelming amount of responsibilities and everything that they have, they can't do everything. They just can't. They really, I mean, they just can't. There's not enough hours in the day. And so it's up to us as parents to sit there and go and, you know what I mean, and communicate with, and the nice thing is I was blessed in being able to sit there and have the capability of going in, meeting with the teachers, volunteering, you know what I mean, being a portion of our whatever school that they happen to be in, you know, being a part of the not curriculum, I don't want to say that, but just being involved, you know what I mean, being involved, being helpful, trying to do whatever it is that I could to be of assistance to the school, the parents, whether it's raising money, whether it's, you know what I mean, supplies in the classroom, whatever it is. I think that it falls on the parent to take that stance on that, you know what I mean? This is our children and we need to be much more supportive of them. I mean, you know what I mean? And you know, instead of waiting for the education of them to come to us, we need to go to them.
And that is a good point. And you hit the
Bob, you're muted. I don't know what's going on with your mic, but it's muted. Just letting you know.
Bob,
Can any of you guys hear Bob?
You guys are going to commercial pretty soon.
No, Bob is.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear Bob.
Still can't hear you, Bob.
They
No.
completely lost track. They
This is
ain't
probably the
needs a
best
host
thing.
anyway.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is probably what you mean is like having silent, just keep them quiet. So,
Keep me out on the side.
I think
But
there's
anyway.
another possibility that could enter the equation, and we talk about the people in the community. And I remember a lot of educational institutions have the sponsorship and the support. I was at a thing at CSUN. He
gotta
was
work out the
talking about
kinks.
Michael Eisner. Michael Eisner.
gotta see
didn't
me
go to
lean
Cal
down,
State
so I'll
Northwest,
write
but he
stuff
believed
down,
in the
so.
importance of education, and therefore he put some money in the educational
Donald, that's
program
still
to go
recording us
ahead
in the
and
background,
help
right?
out
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
that. In the colleges, they often have fundraisers, and the fundraisers are
Yeah,
the
we're doing
people who
everything, so
can,
we're going to eventually work on
come
the
and
kinks
support the
out.
college in different ways and different things. I used to have my kids involved in a service learning where they go out to places in the community where they gain work time experience. And I guess it's time for someone else to talk. So let me give it over to Bob here, because I know Bob has something he wants to say. Take the floor, Bob.
Well, no, I think what we're going to do is we're going to be taking
Sounds
we're going to
bad.
take a commercial break, and I want to make sure that you do subscribe to the Third Side Convo, through Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, that type thing. So I think we're going to hear from our sponsors right now.
All right, yeah, Samara.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Good.
I
Well,
like
you
the
guys,
show so
let's
far.
get some feedback, you guys. How you guys think this is going to work? 'Cause this is like our first day. We're probably going to, do like 2 shows, grab a couple of people, have people in the gallery, then grab another 4 and put them in the show. So, and the guys come back and they come back and watch. Do it that way, and we'll try to make it, so it won't be like all day, but you'll have we'll know like having a day or 2. We'll know ahead of time when we can come on, and everybody just mark their calendars and stuff when they can come on the show.
I think you should have after specific events, like after a presidential debate, have it one immediately after.
That's a good
I think that'd be
idea.
interesting.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
But yeah, definitely a specific topic ahead of time so you know what you're getting into.
Send us an email.
Yeah,
Send us an email of ideal topics.
And it can't be Bob's bourbon
like a
selections. We
bourbon.
can't go through Bob's
oh,
bourbon.
well, we can do that.
track. No.
And I need to up my bourbon game, so we can do that.
For the graphic of the show, I think the flashing light in the background is a distraction. And for someone that may have a seizure, you could predispose them to seizures. So the flashing light, red, white, and blue
Oh
in the
yeah,
background
that
is
is
very distracting.
that's busy. Yeah.
On the flashing light.
The thumbs up that he did could be smaller.
Distraction.
The thumbs up that they did could be smaller. It seemed like it was covering her face when she had did something well. She put a thumbs up in front of her.
Yeah, now that you mention it, the flashing lights is a bit much. Didn't notice
thought
until
that
you said it.
That was the purpose of the show. That's branding.
Well, I'll get back to the commercial. Oh.
And
This is good stuff, man.
sometimes while there's a conversation on the Zoom going on, it's kind of
This is like the last
testing
testing year shows that this is the worst that kids have performed since they started these tests. And that's really saying something.
I wish I had
that tells us
I don't have a
it's
button
not
to,
working.
like turn it
We're on
down.
fire.
I'm gonna have to work on that to get a button so I can turn it down.
Hey, Rosalind, would you agree with that? You've been in education, probably the longest of anybody on the panel anyway, since that's
You
been
guys can
your
still
career.
talk during when the show
Is it not working?
Oh, this is kind of interesting. I was just listening.
Well,
Yeah.
I have to go ahead and say I've worked in all
I
levels
think
of
that most of us
education,
need to
from
be on a laptop
elementary
when we
to
show. I didn't
middle
think
school
about
to junior high, and there's certainly some
Well, one of the
troubles,
ideas
and
was
I
to
can't
actually
bypass
everybody
the
who's
political
going to be doing the
situation.
show
I was an
regularly
outstanding teacher, and
is
I'm no
gonna get a
longer in the
kit,
classroom. And
like
you look at what
a
happens
like
in
a
classrooms
camera,
today,
nice camera, and stuff
throughout
like
the grade,
thing
throughout
like
the
that. So
different
we're
grade
looking
levels.
at
And,
that. So
I see in
everybody
elementary
know when they
kids,
come on the
those
show
ones
who's
that
gonna be a
are the
regular,
wild
we have a
ones are the
kit.
ones that I get to
Okay.
babysit throughout
Make
the
it better.
day.
That's one of the
In middle
ideas.
school, they're always testing the teachers and what they can do. Certainly there's some jewels out there. There's some really good high school students that out there that
Hey, I might have to check
overshadow
out
the
in a
good stuff
second.
that's out there, but it's a
Yeah,
problem.
likewise.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
have
it's
to go ahead
just
and go
after
back to
3.
my friends, the custodial staff. And they said, as you'd walk through the halls and you just shake your head and they say,
Hit Bob up, but
we just
I
see
gotta get
in the
going myself.
hallways what the students are doing
Okay.
and how they take care of the campus. It's
Right.
just getting
We'll
worse
catch
and
this
worse
thing
and
up.
worse and worse.
Hey, Leo.
And I have friends who
Love
retire
y'all,
and get
man.
out of the
Thank you.
system
Good
and
work.
said, I couldn't get out too soon because what's going on and
Bye,
happening is unreal.
Yeah.
The whole thing about how you evaluate teachers and how you
Oh, it's terrible.
have to meet these certain standards. They're teaching to the standards and they're not teaching what the kids need to learn. And maybe that's why the learning isn't happening, because they're trying to keep those test scores happening. That's what I see is going ahead and happening in the education.
Well, don't they just these days, Rosalind, don't they just say, well, we're just not going to have any more D's and F's and that'll make everything good?
That's simplistic.
I
No,
was seeing one today where what they did was
that if you were going to go ahead and get ahead, that
right.
you would just upgrade them so that you wouldn't have that to happen,
Right. Hey, you don't want them in your class another year, I would imagine. We can't.
it's interesting. It's interesting what you said, Rosalind, about how the custodial staff is seeing how the kids are not taking care of the school itself. And I would argue that's because they're not invested in their education. They're not invested in the school itself. They're not invested because for them, they're probably seeing what's the point? I mean, we're hearing a lot about AI and new technologies and how all these different jobs we're seeing, like music, the industry is completely changing. Video, the industry is completely changing. All these things where you used to be able to get a job in and be really creative in and make money doing seem to become irrelevant. And I'm thinking that a lot of kids are seeing that, hey, what are we here doing? We're not even learning, or what we are learning isn't going to be relevant by the time that we enter the job market.
Well, the number one desired occupation for a young person these days is a social, is an influencer, a social media influencer.
Oh my gosh, that's true.
Let's go to our final thoughts now. And Bill, I'm going to go in and start with you. What's the one thing you think we need to do to fix education, or what's after thinking about it a bit?
Well, Michelle made the point just a minute ago that the schools can't do it all, and they absolutely can't. And the problem is there has been such a focus, it seems, across the board on other issues that are fundamentally where parents should be. And, this gets into the whole issues of gender identity, who kids are, who they want to be, what kind of person should they become. Those are issues that should be most highly impacted by the parents, ties in with their with the book learning portion of their education. But it's basically we got to get control back into the hands of the parents, and we'll
are you talking about the 3 R's? Basically, you're saying we need to get back to the 3 R's?
Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Okay, good.
Get out of this whole identity.
I love it. Michelle, give me your final thoughts.
Oh my gosh. You know what, though? The funny thing is I'm going to probably sit there and crack on Bill, though, a little bit, though, with regards to instead of receiving money.
Don't worry. We'll put y'all back on a show with him in the future, so you'll be able to bounce all over him. Okay, now go. What's your thought?
No, my thought is, though, I was like, instead of, let's say, you know what I mean, having money received with regards to where they want to put their kids, charter, public, whatever it is, homeschool, maybe, maybe it's one of those to where the responsibility is going to be out financially on them. Maybe it's one of those to where, you know what I mean, this is a controversial, stance, but maybe they get charged. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe they get fined. Maybe they get things, you know what I mean, where they're not, you know what I mean, taking their portion with regards to their child.
All right. Okay, Rosalind, what's your final thoughts?
Well, my final thoughts go back to the money that teachers get in the educational system. Why is it one of the lowest paid professions out there?
Exactly. That's the point right
there. Put more money into teachers and their education, how they can come up with innovative programs out there that might be able to handle these changing times. They say that AI is only part of it. You'd have the human intelligence and that critical thinking skills. And those critical thinking skills.
Hey, Drake. Okay. All right, Drake. Now, Drake, your thoughts on is money going to fix it?
Talk about money too. Make it rain. Make it rain. No, let's give the parents the money. Look at that. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want it to rain all over them? Give the parents the money. Let them decide where they want to go with their education.
Be in the homeschool business,
so that
Drake.
way we can see, hey, this is a good route to go. You can see by the fruits of the children how they're learning, what their education level is, and everybody will be able to make a decision for themselves versus being forced into one pigeonholed system.
Oh my God. That was absolutely wonderful, guys. Thank you for your participation today in the Third Side Convo. I did not hear a single politician's name be mentioned, and I am so proud of y'all. It's what we're going to do in the future. We've got it. We're on. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Figure out how to do it like that mystery theater where you can hear the show and you can hear the people. And I understand that the show probably dominated right now. So we've got to check to see how to best to do that.
And Bob, since the show is called Third Side Convo, what you have in your background will not be the where you have the Tiberius show.
Oh, I had a Tiberius show in the background.
Like
oh no!
Oh,
that's so funny. That. He forgot to change the screen back there, didn't he?
Yeah.
Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my game.
You gotta have a first show, don't you? But thank you for noticing that, Mola.
And also the graphics, like a strobe light color, that keep
Yeah.
going. It's very distracting. And if
Which
you have
one?
someone that
Which graphic is distracting?
the background graphic that keep going back and forth, the red, white, blue, whatever color
Okay.
that is.
Actually, the red, white, and blue is kind of
Yeah,
distracting.
and what happened is if you have someone that has history of seizure, the strobe-like effect of that could make him have seizures. And
Okay.
it's very distracting. Like you're trying to see what color is going to come next than paying attention to the panelists.
Yeah, that was an issue. Yeah, they kind of distracting on the color.
Yeah, we'll have
Wrote
to
that
see. One
down.
of the things we're going to be able to hopefully do is, since we've taped the Zoom from a couple of different angles, we'll say, we've got to see how it's coming out in the Zoom too. So we'll be checking that all out. So y'all able to talk during the commercials, which was good, right? How about interrupting a little bit? Did y'all throw in some comments when it wasn't, or were y'all just listening?
It's hard. Go ahead.
Okay.
I said some things. I said some things.
I said some things. We try to go. What's just the sound of the shows over? We have to talk loud or talk over the show because the show's kind of loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I was trying to mute the commercials so we can talk during the commercials, and we came up with some dialogues we were having during the commercials.
Okay.
And one thing you may want to do, Bob, is run a side panel with, if you can put comments in the chats, you can have those go live as the four people talk. So all these other people, you could list the chat on the side as, regular people, and this is their comments from inside the house, something like that.
I like that. That's better than trying to have a conversation, because sometimes the conversation
You can read people going off, like Bill's going off about the parents, the schools are becoming the parent, which I think is wrong. And so I could comment that as he keeps going on to explain it. I think that'd be a good contrast.
So you're saying what? Just have the chat up over
The
to
chat,
the right?
yeah, the chat thing on the side, yeah.
I'd agree. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Because
Oh,
most
Bob, what do you
people
expect? I'm a
obviously
liberal from San Francisco. I know everything.
There you
Well,
go.
having the chat available to the public and let them see it in the show is possible, but we're going to have a separate chat for that. It can't be done in the Zoom chat. It'd have to be a separate chat designed for it. And it's about
Why is that?
$60 a month to do it.
Oh,
There's a
that's
system in
that's
place
to
to
get
do
it in the show,
To
not
get
to
it in
get
the
it in
show,
the
right.
Zoom. Did y'all start using the chat in the Zoom or
They
not?
did.
I did.
I saw some people
Good.
using chats. Yeah.
Great.
Go to my
Well,
chat in the Zoom. You'll see some comments I made.
I will.
It's
Good.
the same.
I've
It's
been
the same
seeing
place where you put the wire cutter the rendezvous telestream link. It was the same thing.
Yeah, I got some chats in there from Ted. I got some good stuff.
Good.
All right, you guys, I got to take off and leave. It's a pleasure to sit there and meet everybody.
Yep.
Take
Good to
care.
meet everybody.
Good luck, Michelle. Good luck with the
Take care.
kids.
Have a good day. We'll talk to
Good
you
luck.
later. Bye.
So Ted, what did you think?
I thought it was okay. I could see anyone beyond 4 commentators can get a little heavy. So I think that's a good number. Good cross section. I think you may want to select a topic and select 5-6 questions ahead of time. Have some room for a little follow-up to clarify. And so that keeps it on the rails and tighter and moving forward a little faster. That's all.
Okay. Well, part of this is the topic was decided among the group.
Yep, I know.
There was
So
no
let's
setup
decide it
and
ahead of
pre-plan.
time. Let's decide it ahead of time. And Bob
Yeah,
just
can
says,
we-
just make Bob the king. Let Bob say, this is the show. This is what we're going to do. You can always do that. So producers.
Well, and we've kind of done that in the past, but what we've got to recognize is being topical could be important. So let's say, for example, that we're going to be taping a show on Thursday nights. Let's just say that ends up being the time we end up taping it, and something happens on Wednesday. Well, we've got to have the ability to say, okay, this is what we're going to talk about tonight, yet we've already got the 4 people arranged. So that is something we need to consider.
Well,
Bill,
that's
how
what
did you
the
feel
news
about
shows do. The news shows if if there's a school shooting and then they have 4 people, boom, that can talk about school shootings. So
Yeah. Right.
I think topicality is big, and
Okay.
especially on something major like let's say a 4th of July parade goes crazy for some reason and becomes kind of a reflection on the culture, and even that's 2 days later, we can get that going and that leads to deeper things. I think that's where you may have better chance for people later on to say, what was this group talking about the after effects of liberal city councils not fining people for blowing up the parade, something like that, whatever the case may be.
Well, Ted, we might do a combination of actually knowing the topic a week ahead of time versus something happens and we need to change
Absolutely.
the topic.
And you change it. You have to change it the last minute. That happens.
And what we're hoping for is we'll have enough people, so we may only need people on the show, once a month type thing, if even that. We want to have that many people, but then we're trying to get the Zoom part of it to be more the thing that anybody can jump on at any time.
There you go. Yeah,
that's what we're wanting.
Now, Bill, this is your first time being on the show. How did you feel, and how did you enjoy that experience?
Well, I found it enjoyable. I was on once before.
He was on.
Yeah. And that one, it was, I concur 100% with Ted's comments on this. Probably the only time I'll agree with a San Francisco liberal. His Ted's comments were dead on in terms of the 4 is a good balance where we're not talking over each other, and it really did strike a good balance. Topicality, if we have a little bit of warning, even if you want to schedule folks in, if there's something that comes up and somebody's not comfortable with the subject matter area, maybe they can waive off. So having an alternate or something for various subjects might be a way to do it. But having an idea of what we're going to discuss, I think that's important for folks to kind of come up with concise points they want to address.